The scaffolding industry in Trinidad is generally influenced by the US OSHA standard and the British standard. In the upstream oil and gas industry, where there are operators from the United Kingdom, the requirement is the British standard. Consequently, in the downstream industry, there are many companies with alliance to the United States, and consequently the standards in use here will be the US OSHA scaffolding standard. There have been several scaffolding accidents which have been reported in the local newspapers of persons who sustained serious injury and even death. These accidents point to a general lack of regulation and enforcement on the part of the industry and also on the part of the government. While the OSH Agency of Trinidad and Tobago is responsible for investigating accidents, cases of non-compliance with the relevant codes and practices remain unchecked. Scaffold failures occur for a variety of reasons, and when analyzed, it has been found that there are a number of factors involved, with the root cause being the non-compliance with international standards. These factors can be divided into four major categories. The first category is an improperly designed scaffold and complete disregard for the scaffolding manufacturer's recommendations for use. The consequence of using a scaffold in an application other than its design capacity can be catastrophic due to overloading and transfer of loads. In commercial construction, it is common to see poorly constructed scaffolds being used, typically with one or two planks being used as a working platform, missing guardrails and toe boards, and invariably little or no bridge. Secondly, the use of substandard equipment is also prevalent in the industry. It is common to see inferior, substandard materials and equipment being used instead of the certified and proper equipment. Among these issues, the substitution of construction-grade planks instead of scaffold-grade planks is most prevalent. Also ranking close behind is the use of typical 2-inch steel water pipes of Schedule 40 and 20 being used instead of the standard British standard type scaffolding tubes. Scaffold planks must also bear the quality of the appropriate testing agency, which conforms to the BS 2482 of 2009 specifications for timber scaffold boards. The use of construction-grade planks on scaffolds violates the OSHA standards and constitutes an unsafe practice. Scaffold planks are available in two varieties: solid sawn timber from specially grown timber species and man-made planks, which comprise of spruce veneers and adhesives for improved strength and durability, and which reduce warping and splitting. Thirdly is the lack of appropriate certified scaffolding training and assessment. Currently, training is delivered in accordance with either the British standard or the OSHA standard. This has caused controversy as to which one is the better standard, as the costs for training are quite different. Typically, scaffolders often pay for their own certified training with costs that range from 2 to 6 weeks' wages. The National Training Agency, the NTA of Trinidad and Tobago, which is the agency responsible for training, has developed national occupational standards for the scaffolding industry, which will be used for the assessment of competencies in scaffolding. This assessment places emphasis on the scaffolder's ability to erect scaffolding in accordance with the occupational standards, rather than knowledge testing alone, as typical of the other types of training. The competency assessment program through the NTA will also maintain a database of all competent workers, and this will provide the proof of competency. Fourthly is the lack of scaffold inspection performed by authorized and competent persons. OSHA states that scaffolds must be inspected by a competent person at the beginning of every work shift. The British standard, on the other hand, states that the scaffold must be inspected every 7 days or after inclement weather. Ideally, scaffold inspection should commence when the equipment is first delivered to the site, together with the training records of the scaffolders who will be erecting the scaffolding. This will identify the problems before the actual scaffold erection commences. The premise here is that if the equipment is substandard and the worker's competence cannot be proven, then there is no chance that a scaffold will be erected to meet all the requirements of the standard. When the erection of the scaffold is complete, the inspector will perform the inspection visually and use a checklist to easily record any non-compliance with the relevant standard. It is quite apparent that there exists a gap in the local industry for the provision of access scaffolding. In most cases, even the major construction and maintenance companies do not have in-house expertise and only recognizes the need for technical support when faced with imminent project delays and client dissatisfaction.